everyone. This is Mission Debrief. This is the podcast where we interview ex-military operatives. Well, today we're technically not with a military ex-operative, but we are with an ex-pilot in Soar. So, please state your full name.
So, the full name is Blaine Gardillo.
So, Mr. Gardillo, or should I call you
hmm
Blaine?
You can call me Blaine. I really don't mind.
So, Blaine,
hmm
how was your lifestyle in Soar? What did you have to do every morning?
It wasn't really as hard as you would think. I mean, we worked out every morning. Like we kept our bodies in shape, but it wasn't as like I guess I would say hard as like other units like Ranger Regiment or other things like that.
All right. So, who have you ever worked with? Like any units, like DevGru, Rangers, like you said, Nate,
hmm
DevGru, CAG. Um, see what else there is. That's probably all I can list off right now. That's probably the
Yeah.
main ones.
Yeah, I mean, we mainly work with Ranger Regiment because we usually transport them a lot of the time. We did work with some higher tier units, like we worked with DevGru once or twice. We worked with Delta a couple of times, but we mainly just work with the Ranger Regiment for most of it.
Okay. Okay. So, what would you say was the hardest mission that you were ever on? Like,
Hardest.
if you could say it, because I know a lot of people out there, they want to hear this information, but you literally cannot say it
hmm
because of OPSEC.
I think by now I'd have to check, but I believe right by now it is declassified from our unit. So I'll say it right here. So basically, we were in Somalia. We were going to go on a quick little mission to capture a high value target. We were going to be working with Delta Force on this one because they were, a good unit to actually conduct this operation, and we were going to be flying them in. So we had two little birds, one Blackhawk. The two little birds were at the back. The Blackhawk was at the front, like a diamond formation essentially. We were flying in. We had just taken off from the airbase. We did our little briefing on what we were gonna do. We started coming in, and we just started taking fire. So we were as at the time I was a crew chief still, and I was essentially trying to figure out where we were taking fire because I was in command of all the pilots in our team for Soar. So we were trying to figure out where everything was. Where it was kind of we weren't really necessarily panicking, but we were like getting ready to get into something. You know what I mean? You understand what I mean? Like
Yes, yes.
we were ready to get into something because I mean the little birds didn't have much protection, as you know. I mean they just are Delta dudes. They're just on the sides of them. It was just really the Blackhawk that had like some decent protections. So we had the little bird stay back a little bit more, and the Blackhawk was gonna go in there and actually try to look for him. At the time, I was on the Blackhawk because they actually had guns and it was a lot better for us. So
Right.
our co-pilot, because I was in the Blackhawk, he was on the FLIR looking on thermals. It was kind of hard to see on thermals though because wasn't the best vision on it, but we could see like targets and stuff. So we were trying to figure out where they were. We were spotting some. We were getting some of them, but we were still taking heavy fire. So we were just gonna go get back to base, and we're gonna reinsert with uh heavier guns, just everything. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So now we were just all riding in Blackhawks. We had one DAP helicopter with us as well, and he was at the front and that Blackhawk was at the front of the formation, and we had two Blackhawks behind it. Same formation, just we had heavier weaponry. So DAP was continuously looking, and we also got a drone up there so we could actually try to get eyes. And we got some eyes. We got eyes in the target building, which is where I guess we were actually taking fire from the target building. So we weren't gonna engage in because I mean we don't want to try to kill this target because it was fairly high value target. So we were not gonna engage and with like the DAP or anything. We were gonna use the miniguns, try to because we can't really do bursts on the minions because they'll just jam up and it's not gonna be good. So we fired a little bit, we stopped, then we kind of rotated to the other side, fired a little bit, stopped, and then we kind of kept doing that. So we had time to, so the miniguns had time to kind of cool down. And meanwhile that was happening, one of the Blackhawks started descending and trying to land towards our new LZ. So that Blackhawk had most of our Delta friends with us because we were kind of planning for this to happen because we didn't know where exactly they were, but we knew their general location because we had seen a couple of them kind of scattering around. So one Blackhawk started descending. They ended up landing safely. They got out of there. Blackhawk got out of there. Delta was making their way to the I guess it was a house. I'm pretty sure, like just a little small house. So they were making their way to the objective, and while that was happening, we were just trying to kind of orbit the area because we didn't want to try to engage them too much, but we didn't want them to actually start hitting us because they were firing at us. They weren't hitting us much though. So we kind of started orbiting. We were just kind of waiting for them to get the target, and then we can go clear it and make sure it's all good. So their Delta Force comes up. They start clearing it. They're about to breach, and then because our co-pilot was still on the FLR, we were looking down and we see some dude come out with an RPG. At least that's what it looked like. So we're like, hey, get the hell out of there because they were probably about to fire. I mean, we didn't know if it was an RPG, but we don't want to risk losing a bunch of special forces dudes. I mean, that's just, we don't want to do that. So we told them to try to get out of there. They fired the RPG. Turns out it was indeed an RPG. They fired it. They didn't fire it that accurately, but it did injure some of our dudes. So we wanted to get some of those dudes out of there, and they went back kind of to close to our LZ where that Blackhawk landed, and we got some PJs from the airfield and got them out of there. Then they were just gonna have to continue with their mission because we want to try to get out of there quick. So they went back in. They were keeping eyes, and we were keeping eyes as well. They actually breached this time. They got the target. They got out of there, and they ended up not losing many guys. One of the Delta Force operators did die, unfortunately. He was just hit too bad, he was just too close to the explosion, so we couldn't do much about it. But I'd say that's probably, I mean, to me, it's not really that chaotic considering like stuff you kind of would hear, like a Black Hawk Down kind of, that kind of stuff. It wasn't as chaotic as this, but it's mainly because it's not really like that like Black Hawk Down, that kind of situation where it's super chaotic. It hasn't happened very often. Like it's fairly rare for us to happen. So I'd say that's probably like my most chaotic, I guess, mission, at least from what I would say.
Mm-hmm. So like so I don't think I have any more questions. I know this was pretty short.
Yeah.
But so how do you deal with these how do you deal with these like soldiers just dying on your helicopter, just your best buddies, you witness them die, you know what I mean? Like how do you take this?
Mm-hmm. I mean, it sucks, man, but I mean, we had training, we had enough training. We understood that it might happen someday, and it was just like, it's tough and all, but we can't be grieving over it when we're in the minute when we're in a battle zone. We can't be grieving over it. I mean, hey, take a little break for a second. All right, you know what? It sucks, but we kind of have to deal with it. I mean, because let's say we're in the middle of a mission and then we just start breaking down. We that can't happen. Considering that I mean, we're not really like operators, but we're still special forces to an extent. You know what I mean? We're the best pilots that we can get in terms of helicopters.
So how does it feel to like having to cope with the death of your troop members or your friends?
To me, it's always just been rough in general. Like I've had a buddy of mine get shot down from an RPG. He was in a Blackhawk, and I mean, I always kind of like I don't really have ways to deal with it because it's kind of hard to explain. But I always think about things like this, like if you're a pilot, just in general, and like any kind of pilot, and you're getting shot down, I would say that it might be one of the most stressful ways to die because you're in the air and you just got shot at by an RPG and now boom you're dead. You know what I mean?
How
Like in hmm,
so how did you take
hmm.
this? Like how were you just able to just oh man, you fucking died. What am I gonna do now? Whatever.
uh, I mean, I've had friends get hit before and they end up passing away. It's like, you kind of get used to it to an extent. I mean, you don't really get used to it, but you can relax or react a lot better than maybe like civilians or something.
Yeah.
That's really like how I would
So did
deal
you
with it
ever
better. I'd say.
have did you ever have to tell the next of kin what happened to your friend? How was it? You know,
But have I ever had to tell who?
the next of kin, they're basically their family and friends.
I've I have had a close friend of mine that I was in contact with their parents. I didn't tell them directly because I didn't want to interfere with because I mean the army sent out some dudes and they dealt with it, but I didn't say anything until the news actually broke out. I mean I talked to him after it actually was stated by our the army, but yeah, that's really about it, man.
So
Like we kind of have to just have to. Mhm.
how did they take it? How did they take it?
I mean, they were mainly civilians, man. Like I mean, they didn't take it well, but they were like, yeah, we thought that, or we knew understood that this could happen at one point because I mean, we all had to kind of what was it? I think we had to sign something that was stating like if you die, like your parent, you know what I mean, like you parents and stuff have to understand it because I mean, it can happen. I mean, it's definitely not that rare, especially in a combat zone
All right,
or scenario.
all right. So how was your time? Like how was it having to operate with these high tier operators? Like was it scary? Were you nervous the first time you did it? Was there anything?
At at the time, I was nervous because one of the first missions that we went on was we were gonna fast rope in. At the time, I was still a crew chief, so I was very new to the job, and I was gonna be dropping the ropes. So it was kind of like I can't you know, what I mean, I can't mess this up. Let's do this and let's be done with it. It wasn't necessarily scary because if anything, I kind of felt safer with them knowing that they were gonna be helping us out.
Mm-hmm.
But it was, I mean, it was still, it was still kind of, how to describe it? Like, I don't know how I'd really describe it, but it was kind of worrying in a way. Not by them, but just, combat zone with them. Especially because at the time, I think we were in Afghanistan, we were fighting the Taliban, and they would try to target us specifically because we were some of the highest operators that they could get.
Mm-hmm. Right. So has anybody ever like fallen off? This might be a goofy question, but has anybody ever fallen off your helicopter?
Um, no, I don't think anybody that I've known of or anything like that. I don't think I've never had a case of that happening. But honestly, I did think it was gonna happen at one point. We were going on a fast roping mission, once again, and we had Blackhawks obviously because we don't usually use little birds and stuff for repelling because like we're still stationary, you know what I mean? And if we get shot at by an RPG with that thing, like it's such a small helicopter and like you can't really get out of there fast when there's someone rappelling down a fast rope. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I've never, no one's ever fallen off, from what I know. We had a couple of close incidents, but I mean the Blackhawk they have like their straps and stuff, which is why I always thought someone's gonna fall off eventually. But no, surprisingly, no one ever did.
Yeah. So was it scary to be in the air for the first time?
It was, to be honest, it was very scary. It was just like I'm in the middle of a combat zone. I've never been in combat. At the time, I hadn't been in combat yet, and it was like I was scared, but I was like, all right, just keep myself under control. Let's get through it, and let's see how bad it really is. Because I didn't think it was gonna be that bad, considering I've heard stories of like bad things happening, but it's fairly rare. So I was scared for a little bit, but then I was like, all right, it's not gonna be as risky as you would think. I guess I'd say.
So how did you feel about like uh how did you feel about being like a pilot in general?
Um, you kind of have to get used to it. Like for a couple of my missions, I started getting a little bit sick just because I wasn't used to flying around helicopters just this long and this normally. So you have to kind of get used to it in a way, and also you have to get used to like understanding that, or well, not necessarily understanding, but like at one time I thought I might like literally fall off a helicopter, and it was like never, no one ever even, that never even happened to anybody that I knew of. So you just like you have to understand that a lot of the time nothing's gonna happen, like to you at least. Maybe someone will get injured, but nothing to you. So you just have to be able to calm yourself down in situations. You can't be like panicking during something.
Right? So like how did you join SOAR? Like what trainings did you have to do? Like what is the selection system, training system, and like in
Mm.
general, right?
Hmm. Yeah, so I can't really go into detail about like our SEER training, that kind of thing. But I mean I can tell you about like some of the things that might have happened in there, but I mean nothing like crazy. But one of the main things was SEER. That was probably the toughest thing because you just had to endure stuff, man. Either that or you were out in the forest running from whoever. A lot of the time it was actually either our own instructors, or it was other random dudes that we didn't really know, but they were, obviously in some kind of unit for that.
So
But
was it like unexpected the way like like how were you captured? Was because I heard many stories about this. Like for an example, from what I've heard, like an ex Navy SEAL, right? Like they literally had to simulate a car crash while they were in a van, and like they got taken hostage, right?
mm-hmm. I mean, we didn't really endure that, or we didn't do stuff like that because I mean, like sometimes we might have gone on the ground, but I mean that's what I thought at first. But no, we never actually did go on the ground. We always were flying, or we were in some, or either we were flying or we were back at base waiting to go pick them up. But I mean the one thing that I know, I think it might be the Marine Corps who does this for like force recon. I think they do this too. We had to submerge ourselves while we were in a helicopter trying to get out, because I mean that's the environment we're gonna be in, and we also have to or we also have to know how we can get out with the helicopters we'll be operating. So like we had to get out of Blackhawks, Chinooks like 2 times. I'm pretty sure it was mainly Blackhawks though, 'cause that's one of the main things we operate. And I mean Little Bird, it's fairly simple to get out of it. I mean you just can't panic. You know what I mean? You just have to stay calm.
So like who came to rescue you in this year training?
Uh, I think it was. I'm pretty sure it was Ranger Regiment. Pretty sure it was the 75th. Because I think at the time we didn't need like Delta Force or anything to come out there. Because a lot of time it was either going to be just some special operations unit that's that's working with each other. So Ranger Regiment, they work with like Green Berets a lot of the time. They work with Delta every now and then. Not really Debris at all. Because I mean it's a whole other branch and stuff. But I'm pretty sure that it was the Ranger Regiment that got us out of our captivity, I guess. I mean, it wasn't actual captivity,
Mm-hmm.
obviously, but it was very similar to what you could experience in there.
So like, can you describe like a typical like SOAR mission, or as much as you can share?
Mm. Uh, for us, a typical mission was either. I mean, sometimes we even just did recon. I mean, for us, though, I think a typical mission would just be go raiding a little house. Maybe with like a HPT could lead us to something bigger. I think that'd be a normal little mission. We probably have like range because we don't usually transport. I mean, like non-special forces units. Yeah, I mean, even though Ranger aren't even can actually like technically consider special forces, we still transport them because they're a good reaction force and they're very fast with like their movement, which is why we went on most of the raids. We had them with us because they're very like I wouldn't really say quick reaction force, but they can be a quick reaction force actually. But they were very fast and fast paced at their CQB and all that kind of stuff.
So, like, what advanced technology did you have, like, during Ex-Soar? Or so also I have
Uh,
two questions.
mm?
Was that and like, so like, what was the relationship like between pilots and the special operations soldier you transported or supported? And
Mm.
like, how did the advanced technology you had, like, like what was
Help
the
us,
like,
kind of.
so like, what was the advanced technology you had in SOAR?
So for us, it was mainly our FLIR cameras that the co-pilots would mainly operate, and also it was I'm trying to think of what else it was, or what else there was. Let's see, we didn't really have much other like advanced technology. I mean, we had like I'm trying to think of what it was called. Like at one point, I'm pretty sure we actually experimented with a like some kind of like thermal optic almost. It was supposed to be put on minigun. We never actually it was never like actually used, but it was a that was one of the things that we had tested or that we were been ordered to test. We didn't actually go on a mission with it because it was we didn't want to do that, but we tested that and also it was mainly just our FLIR camera really.
All right. So
Mm-mm.
what was the relationship between you and like the other operators that you had to operate with?
It was I mean honestly we like some people we didn't always get along, but we understood at the time that we just we're just gonna go do our missions. You guys do your thing, we do our thing. But a lot of the time, since we were usually deployed with those guys, or we were just at some air base and we were just gonna be picking them up, we would usually have a good relation with them. I mean, we would have like separate like bunks and stuff, and but we always would hang out with them for a while because if we're sometimes we got deployed to like a fob with them with some like Green Berets one time and stuff like that. But it was mainly pretty good. And I mean, unless we, some people just didn't get along with each other, but it was pretty good overall.
Alright.
Mm.
So, like, what's unique about like flying at night, like in
Flying at
SOAR,
night.
like particularly with night stalker missions?
Yeah. Um, it's it looks very cool, but it is really hard sometimes. Like a lot of the time, the pilots would rely on me because they either couldn't see out of the aircraft because I mean because like night vision's fuzzy if that makes any sense. Like it's so hard to see, but it's a lot easier to see. So a lot of the time,
So it was
if
like
we were gonna
blurry, right? It was blurry.
yeah, kind of essentially yeah. So like let's say we were going out a faster mission at night. This didn't happen very often, but it happened a couple of times. A lot of the time they would descend and they would just use their what would you call it? Like I guess systems like their altitude meter and speed meter and all that kind of stuff. And I would kind of guide them to it, or either me, crew chief, so me, or a door gunner would usually kind of guide them in, and they'll be like, "All right, stop here, stop here. We'll hover here, and then we'll drop the ropes or whatever." But it was, I mean, I never really flew, like actually flew that much, but it was. They always kind of told me how hard it was.
Okay. So how was it like to transition from the operative life to the civilian life? Because I know it's probably like a really hard transition.
Yeah, I mean, let's see. Um, it was. it wasn't as hard because we didn't get in as much action as like infantry or something did, but it was still tough. I mean, we were in the military. I mean, it's always gonna be tough usually, especially because we got deployed a lot to big combat zones. Like I'm pretty sure we went to Kunar once, and I mean, it's a military. It's gonna be pretty rough, but it was definitely pretty hard. Like I remember it's always been hard just because like let's say we were not really asset protection but like some kind of convoy, we were leading them to their objective or whatever. It was always very hard to get used to cars kind of tailing you. If that makes any sense, because a lot of time in Afghanistan or Iraq or something, it's like when a car is tailing you or like some kind of convoy, it's never a good sign.
Yeah,
Like
it's
it's,
weird.
you know what I mean? It's, yeah,
It's
it's
weird.
very,
Yeah,
and a
it's
lot of time we would get
scary.
ambushed.
It's
Yeah,
like.
it's so it's always kind of hard to get used to stuff like that, but
Mhm.
got used to it eventually.
So, like, how was your SOAR experience? Like, how did your SOAR experience shape your perspective on challenges in, like, civilian life in general?
Mm. Mm. Trying to think how I would say it. Let's see. I guess civilian stuff. It's you just can't overthink it, man. Cause like I always like, cause I ended up getting a job after I got out of the military in the civilian world, and like I always kept thinking of like crazy things. So like let's say I had to do this and this, and or I don't know. I'm trying to think of like an example to show, but it's you can't overthink things. Like if you're let's say you're coming out of the military and going to the civilian world, you can't be overthinking things because a lot of the time I would overthink things and then I would get them wrong when it was like super simple. Because I mean we're out in the field and it's like well, maybe this dude's gonna come get this. You know what I mean? It was kind of stressful at times, but you just kind of have to understand what you shouldn't do and what you can do if that makes any sense. Like,
Mm-hmm.
hmm
So, like, if you could, like, go back, is there anything you would do differently in, like, your SOAR career?
I think because sometimes we would go like we would have so many like actually I guess I would say dangerous missions that I never well because we kind of had it where like do y'all want to go like who wants to go out on this mission, like we're not gonna force you because it's a tough mission and we don't want you guys to just fail on us because y'all are going on such a big mission. And they asked that for like mainly our new guys, so like me, because at the time this was like one of our big missions, and I didn't volunteer for it. I think I should have volunteered for more stuff like that because we went on a couple big raids that I just didn't volunteer for.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I think at the time I just didn't understand. It was a lot. It wasn't as dangerous as you would expect it to be.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
So,
there's
so
obviously always a risk, but
what tips would you give to, like, the other people in the audience that wants to join 160th SOAR?
mm, let's see. I would say, um, like when you're in training, like kind of like for especially Sierra School, man. At the time I wasn't thinking right, kind of after Sierra School,
Sorry.
almost. Very good, but in Sierra School, I just was not thinking right for a while, and you have to stay calm, man. Like I mean, yeah, I know it'd be hard to understand that you can just have to stay calm because it's so hard to at that time, but you're not like you're not gonna die in Seer school. I mean, maybe unless you actually get into captivity, maybe. But I mean, still like we have so many dudes like Dev Gru, Delta, like they'll come save you, man. Like they won't give up. Like kind of like what was the SEAL team that went on recon Marcus Luttrell? I'm pretty sure Ranger Regiment went and got him. and they did not give up looking for him. I remember even in the movie they made that literally they had like two Chinooks shot down. They just did not give up. They came right back in.
Yeah.
Like you can't. And
America
also you
does
can't give
that.
up.
America does that. If
Yeah,
one of their
literally.
men go down, they're
Oh
going
yeah,
down with them. As
they
they're saving
could
them.
literally fall or not really.
They're gonna bring them up. They're gonna bring them up from the void.
They're gonna try their best, literally the best that they can possibly do
Yeah, they're
to
gonna
get those out of
bring them up from the void.
there.
So is there like a particular moment from your time in Sword that stands out as like particularly meaningful or transformative? Maybe.
Let's see. Mm, trying to think of something that would be like meaning or really big and it's kind of hard to explain, but uh, I'd say really understand what your instructors say, man, because it's like I didn't really think about much of it because at the time I was like, let me just get through this and be done with it. You know what I mean? Because I mean, it was still tough. Obviously, it wasn't as I don't think it's as tough as like DevGuru or something, or like trying to get into Green Team or something like that. But I mean, it's like for us, since a lot of the time we either haven't deployed or our only MOS has been some kind of pilot or some kind of crew member of a helicopter. We don't go through as much really as like the infantry does. So you have to follow like you really have to follow your instructors, man. Like if they say, "Hey, y'all just gotta stay calm their scenario. It sucks, but you just have to go through it." You gotta listen to that because they're not wrong. I mean, it just sucks, but you just gotta get through it. Mm.
I'm sorry about what you've heard. For a second, I was I was doing something, sir. I'm sorry. I'm very sorry.
Very good. It's all fine.
So like, what's unique about flying like MH60s?
Mm, I feel like they're like, let's say a Blackhawk versus Chinook, you would think that a Blackhawk is actually a lot smaller than a Chinook. It's not actually as small. It's not like that smaller than a Chinook, man. Like they seem a lot smaller when you kind of like picture them in your head, like those helicopters, but they are so big, man. Like it is like that's why a lot of the time during night raids, sometimes when we had to land and tough areas, they would rely on their crew chiefs because they just couldn't. It was so hard to see, but also they're just such big helicopters that it's like, especially with like rotor blades and stuff. Those things are so incredibly like delicate, I would say, because if you damage just one of them, you might be screwed in terms of like just going down. So like it's not necessarily. I mean, yes, yeah, I guess you would say it's hard, but it's also kind of how would I describe it? It's not what you would think, really. Like you would think the pilots would just land on their own with no help, but it's a lot more serious than just that. Like you really have to rely on other people in the helicopter.
So like why did you like what made you want to join Soar?
Mm,
Or did you just get lost? You're in your way through college.
no, I just wanted to see what I could or not necessarily what I could experience, but I just thought it would help me out really, just with dealing with like chaotic situations. I mean, I knew it was gonna be tough to like adjust to civilian life and stuff after, but I just thought it was gonna help me. And also, I got recommended to there, right? Or not really necessarily recommended, but I got, you know what I mean? Like someone was like, "Hey, this guy might be pretty good at this job or whatever in
Right.
your unit."
So
So,
what job do you have now in your civilian life?
mm. I currently
Or like
work as a yeah.
or what job would you get if like you were able to get it as a civilian transition?
Civilian. If I had like wanted a good job that would pay me well, because I mean, like the military, you would think they would pay people well. I mean, they do, but it's not as much as you expect, man. Like even I remember I think it was an Army Ranger sniper. Like he didn't get paid actually that much, like from what you would think. But for me, I think if I had a civilian job that I would want, probably just construction, man. As long as I don't live in like a hot area, I would probably do construction because they make so much money, and as long as it's not like super super hot out, I could probably do that job. I bet.
So, like,
Mm.
is there any questions for me or the audience that you have to say, Lord?
I don't think I have any questions, no.
Or do you have anything to say to the audience, at least?
I would say that I mean this sounds kind of goofy and all, but I mean literally just follow your dreams, man. If you think you can do it, you can probably do it. Like I didn't think I was gonna get into Soar or something. I mean, but I did, and I did pretty well in it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And also follow your instincts, please do. It's always a good thing, especially if you go into my field. It's you got to be following your instincts a lot
Yes.
of the time.
Yes. So, Mr. Blaine, thank you for
Yeah.
being in my podcast. Um,
Mhm.
so thank you very much for being here and giving us so letting me interview you. Um,
Yep.
that should be it for the night. I hope I could see you again on this podcast. Thank you, and
Mhm.
I'll see you next time.
All right.